management. And this is take two, because in take one, I learned in the chat that you couldn't hear me. So if you're here and you're listening, I hope you will let me know that you can hear me. I hope that I have fixed the problem. All right. So 7 things that you may be getting wrong about change management. Boy, is this an important topic. 2+ years ago, we were hit by COVID. And before that, we were talking about the pace of change and how the pace of change has been accelerating and how fast things were changing. And then we got hit by COVID, and the pace of change didn't just accelerate. I mean, we had to make significant, life-changing, humongous changes immediately. We were home overnight, and all sorts of things then changed in a domino effect. The way we sell, the way we manage people, the way we meet with people, the way we collaborate, so many things changed overnight. And so I can't think of a more important topic than getting some of the conventional unwisdom out of the way so that you as a leader can be more effective at getting the change that you need instituted inside your company and through all of your people. So I've got 7 things to talk about today, 7 things that you may be getting wrong. And when I say you may be getting wrong, the chances are incredibly high that you are at getting at least some of these wrong, because in my experience in many, many companies now, these are the ways that people are talking. These are the conventional unwisdoms. And so let's fix some of these misconceptions. One thing that we've heard again and again, you've heard it, I've heard it, people resist change. But that, folks, is not the full story. In fact, I would say it's not quite the true story. It's not the right story. What's more true is that people resist failure. People are incredibly sensitive to failure. They resist taking risks that might lead them to fail. So how do you kind of unwind and mitigate some of this resistance to change? Well, it's to make failure less likely by putting things in place that support people to succeed, and perhaps and probably more importantly, you lower the risk and lower the perceived risk of failure. The very first principle in our 8 principles at the YesWorks that we help install in the companies that we work with who want to improve their culture, the very first principle is yay for failing. Now, this isn't about failing catastrophically. It's about failing fast. It's about failing forward. So yay for failing. You've got to set the expectation with folks that, hey, it's okay if you fail. In fact, I expect that very likely you will fail. And then you've got to demonstrate that, in fact, failing here in our company is much less risky than it was in the previous companies that you've worked for. In fact, you will see me fail. I will share my failures with you. Your colleagues will fail. They will share their failures with you, and you will fail, and we'll look forward to your sharing your failures with us so that we can all learn from them. You've got to lower the risk of failure so that people are more willing and able to embrace change. And when I say able, I am talking about neurological impossibility, that if people are afraid of the consequences of failure, they will not be able to bring themselves to take risks. All right. So number 2, the second thing that many people get wrong about change management is that leaders focus on what's going to be different. Okay, here are the changes that we are going to make, and they list them out, and they maybe talk about how much better things are going to be with these new changes. They focus on what's going to be different. What are you going to have to do differently? What are we going to do differently in your environment? What is the different tool that you are going to be using, and how is it going to be better? And better, by the way, is one form of different. So better is still an emphasis on what will be different. And different is scary. Even better is scary because it's a risk. Perhaps things won't be better. So, yes, absolutely. By all means, you've got to tell people what is going to change and with detail, because the details actually help to mitigate the sense of risk, the sense of unknown. So by all means, tell people what's going to change. But you've also got to tell them what will remain the same. And we've got this principle, essentially, we call this principle the kite principle. A kite in the wind is able to stay aloft because no matter how much the wind shifts, there are certain things that remain the same. There is this line that is attached to the ground. You know what happens to a kite when that line is severed? The kite changes its attitude toward the wind and it falls. So that line and the bridle, those are the 3 points that dictate what the angle of attack of the kite, not to the ground, not to the physical unchanging things, but the attitude of the kite toward the wind, which changes. So you've got to tell people not only what's going to change, the changing wind, but also what's going to stay the same. What are the anchor points that people can depend on, like a rock to cling to in a storm, so that they, we all need, in one form or another, we all need our security blanket. And some of those, talking about those anchor points can help people both understand how that change is relevant so that it increases people's understanding, and it also acts as a security blanket. Well, I'm just thinking of that wonderful Steve Martin movie called The Jerk, right, where he loses everything. He's suddenly broke, and they're gonna take his house away from him, and he wanders through his house and says, well, I've got this lamp, and that's all I need. This lamp and this paddle game, right? And so he's collecting these things that are security blankets for him in this storm. They're anchor points. So you've got to supply those anchor points. The third thing that I'll share with you is that change management is perhaps all by itself as a concept misleading you. We call change management like best practices, right? This is a best practice to manage change in this way. And I don't mean to disparage change management. By all means, you need change management. And if this is the first time that you are looking to get your people to embrace change, is when you've identified the change. Okay, this is what we need to have be different. You are already late. Change management is what happens once you've identified the change, identified the end state, and you're trying to figure out, how do we get from here to there? Now, that's critical to do. And I say that it's behind the curve, because what you need is a change-ready people. You need a change-ready team. You need a change-ready culture. People who are not avidly and actively avoiding change. People who may notice problems, but will not even bring them up because they don't want to have to go through the changes that would be required in order to address those problems. You need to have a culture, a way of being together that embraces change in the first place. So let's talk a little bit in these next few about how to, what is it going to take to have a change-ready culture. So your change plan, right? This is the kind of change management, right? Here's where we are. Here's where we need to end up. Here's how we're going to get there. That change plan is both crucial and insufficient. It's crucial because it helps people to feel comfortable, right? It's not just here's where we are and here's where we need to go, which can be scary for some people. It can be exciting for others, and those might be the people that you want to bring into making the plan. But if you're trying to get from here to there and you give people a plan, that plan can make people comfortable. So it's crucial, right? It helps you think. You've thought through what are some of the contingencies that we might face, and you've thought through what is the logical progression. All of that critically important. And it's insufficient because As a great general once said, no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Or as Mike Tyson put it, everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So you are going to get punched in the mouth, right? You, your team, everybody is going to get punched in the mouth anytime you are trying to institute any change that's more than just let me move this pile from here to there. This is I no longer want my glass right here. I now want it over here. I did not just get punched in the mouth, but if I want to go to the kitchen and refill that glass of water, there's a good chance that I am going to get punched in the mouth between here and there, and that is a pretty simple change. So next point where people, you may be getting things wrong. Right. And this is essentially what we talked about a moment ago, right? We get very comfortable in the status quo. This is how we do business, right? We've got systems. We've got all kinds of the word I'm looking for is algorithms that help us define how we get things done. And those make us efficient and effective, and they make us consistent. Incredibly important and valuable to have these systems in place. There is a huge difference between having systems and adhering to them dogmatically. So speaking of difference, right, on your screen, I've put here this idea that there is a huge difference between resisting change and accepting change, right? What do most of the leaders that I talk to want first? They say, I wish my people would just not resist change and accept the changes that we're introducing that have to happen in order for us to continue to advance in the direction that we're trying to go. There's a huge difference between resisting and accepting. There's also a huge difference between accepting, potentially begrudgingly going along with this change, which is so very close to resisting, right? On a bad day, somebody who was accepting a change may suddenly start resisting it in subtle and potentially sabotaging ways. So there's a big difference between accepting change and embracing change. I am on board. You want this change? You got it. Let's do it. And there's a big difference between embracing change. You got it. Let's do it. And driving change. This is the change we need to make. I am actively pursuing this change. This change means this. Hey, Bob, would you do this so that we can grease the wheels, grease the skids to make this change happen, right? There is a vast distance between embracing change and driving change. And then what happens when you really have change as a way of life in your company? We are actively looking for ways to improve that Kaizen concept of consistent, persistent improvement is initiating change. Hey, I notice that this thing that we're doing is inefficient. I notice that this other thing that we're doing is ineffective. I notice that we are leaving money on the table by not providing this service that is ancillary to the service that we're providing to our customers now. I think we could make a lot of money doing that. Initiating change is, imagine the distance between resisting change and all the way through these few steps to initiating change. It is a vast distance. And imagine what happens in an environment where people are embracing, driving, and initiating change when it comes time to make a change. Is change management such a scary thing in that environment as it is perhaps in your environment? In so many companies, change management is this big. Now you've lost my picture, it seems. So I'm going to try to fix that. Sorry, folks, for the technical difficulties today. All right. And so the next thought that I have for you is that, and it's very closely related change has got to be a status quo. Or rather, change has got to be a way of life. And that is that the status quo is the enemy every day, not just at change time. So to be fair, as I say here, right, the enemy is not actually status quo. The enemy is comfort. I'll say that again. The enemy is comfort. And I remember, being at some sporting event as a kid in high school, where I was playing, and was walking past the other team, and their coach said to them, being comfortable never made nobody proud. And I have remembered hearing that for many decades. Being comfortable never made nobody proud. And that's so important in this conversation and in so many conversations about leadership and achievement, because comfort is a tempter. It tempts all of us. We all want, and admittedly, we all need to be comfortable. We don't need to be comfortable 24/7. We don't need to be comfortable often at work. We need to be a little bit uncomfortable because we all want to be proud of ourselves. We all want to feel fulfilled. We want to be proud of the work that we're doing and the ways in which we're growing. Maslow's hierarchy of needs goes from, the need for creature comforts, right? Food, shelter, water, the kinds of things that we need to survive at all. It goes from there to things like belonging and love. And eventually it gets to fulfillment. It gets to, the need to be growing and developing. And so at work is one of the best places where we have the opportunity to do that. And so status quo is the enemy because being comfortable never made nobody proud. And then here we go. The last of the 7 things that you may be getting wrong about change management is that many people are looking to strike a balance between challenging people who report to them, challenging people around them, challenging their peers, challenging challenging the leadership in the company, and supporting them. Striking that balance, I'm going to call impossible. It's not a balance that can be struck. If you're trying to figure out, which one do I need to pull back on, and then which one do I need to bring forward? Folks, it works best when you are creating a marriage between challenge and support. When you've got a marriage between challenge and support, then you get people who are resilient and ready, right? I'm supporting you. I'm giving you the tools that you need. I really want you to succeed. Hey, failure is going to be okay, right? All of those things are support. And then at the same time, in the same breath, saying, and I need you to make this change. I expect more from you tomorrow than you're able to deliver today. I expect everybody on our team to be constantly improving. I expect our processes to be constantly improving. So instead of trying to figure out, do I support more right now? Do I challenge more right now? How do I strike the proper balance? It's yes, we are supporting you. And yes, we are challenging you. That is an environment that is both uncomfortable and exciting, because being comfortable never made nobody proud. Once again, I'm Aaron Schmuckler. I am the CEO and a co-founder at the Yes Works, where we are helping make people good for work and make work good for people. We're helping teams to have the kind of culture where people embrace reality rather than resisting it, rather than arguing with it, those kinds of things that we all do all the time. And it's just a matter of degree. And so that's the work that we're doing. If you'd like to talk about change management or anything else having to do with building a high-performing culture where people meet reality head on and address it instead of pretending that it isn't there and hiding their heads in the sand, that is the kind of work that we love to do, the kinds of conversations I love to have. I hope you will feel free to reach out. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.